Hello and welcome back to another episode of FMDX for SDR Console. My name is Bryce Foster and today I'm here with you to discuss a core and one of my favorite sets of features in SDR Console, which is recording and playing back IQ and audio files. So every SDR software has this ability to record quickly and easily both the frequency that you're listening to and the entire area of bandwidth that your SDR hardware is monitoring at a given time. And on top of that, it allows you to play back that entire swath of band as if you were DXing live. This is the revolution of SDRs. It's the feature that has transformed the hobby of FMDXing for those that use the feature set and a number of other realms that you can use SDRs. This ability to record an entire section of the band at once is something we could have only dreamed of 10 years ago. And when we're talking about different SDR softwares, I think SDR Console has one of the best implementations of being able to quickly and easily record and review these types of files and audio. So that is what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to launch right into it with audio, which we'll briefly go over and then spend most of the episode on IQ files. So to do all this, we're going to navigate in the ribbon to record/playback, and everything is going to be here. On the left-hand side for audio, we're going to start by recording just a brief moment of one of my local radio stations here just to demonstrate how this works. We're going to hit record and we're going to come up with some options. Now in general today, I'm going to go quickly through options because I think most of them are self-explanatory. You can play around with them, and once you get them dialed in, you're not really going to touch this that much. So up at the top, you'll see the similar interface for IQ files, but you can customize the name of the file that this is going to save. You can change the way that the timestamp looks, whether it's in UTC or your local time zone, and whether it's in ISO format or not. So I like UTC. I'm going to leave that here. Under folder, you're just going to pick using the standard Windows file structure of where you're going to save your audio file. I have a dedicated folder. I would recommend everybody set up a folder. I call it raw audio, of just everything that comes out of the program into my file system. And then format. This is an important one. So there are three options. I would recommend either MP3 or WAV, and I would specifically recommend WAV for SDR Console. So MP3, it does work, and MP3 format overall is a really good way and the most common way that we save audio files here in 2023. However, in SDR Console, the MP3 recorder, in my opinion, just doesn't sound good. It sounds muddy, the quality isn't very good, and for FM signals, sometimes I think it even makes them less intelligible from a recording perspective. So I like to have a good quality recording, so I do everything in WAV, which has spectacular quality but very big file sizes. And then I go through later and convert all my folders to MP3 using a program that is audio quality oriented and can give me the best of both worlds, a reasonable size file with very high audio quality, at least for FMDX and an SDR, which isn't an audio file type of program to start with. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and start this recording up. I'm not going to go over these two options. Length is self-explanatory. You can restrict the amount of length that the recording extends out to, and then this one is not relevant for FMDX. So I'm going to hit start, unmute the audio real quick.
But why?
This is a local or regional sports talk station about 60 miles away in Boston. I'm going to hit stop, and then everything that you just heard in that audio recording should be captured now. So if I hit browse, that's going to pull up the file folder, and then you'll see at the top this file 98.5, which is the frequency I recorded, and that timestamp as it was displayed. Now, I forgot to type in the name of the station, so if you want to document the name of the station, you can always click F2 or right-click and hit rename in Windows and type in WBZ-FM, for example, which is the name of this station. So that's done. And then I talked about converting from WAV to MP3. So you could download a regular converter on your computer. You can just Google converter, some WAV to MP3. I use, and I guess I recommend, a program called Free Audio Converter, or FRE:AC, Free AC. If I click that here, that would pop up an interface where I could quickly convert the audio over to MP3, and then I have a folder here where I have all of my saved recordings that are converted to MP3s, and then I occasionally clean up this raw audio file just to save disk space. So that's how I recommend managing audio recordings. And then if I pull up the recording here, you'll see that it
It's one of the best ground ball rates in all of baseball. But why? I don't know. You lean on paper.
All right, it sounds pretty good. So mission accomplished on audio recording. So let's move on to IQ. So again, IQ is the ability for the SDR to record all of the raw data that's being transmitted over the bandwidth that your SDR is tuned to. So that includes all the raw bits and bytes that compose the RF that ultimately gets decoded into audio, and this visual spectrum scope. Everything, all the raw data that's coming through your SDR gets captured into a file. Now, that file happens to be a .wav format, which is traditionally an audio type of file. And even though this is an audio format and your computer might want to open it up if you happen to explore to it in an audio player, it can only be replayed by SDR software. And specifically, it can be replayed, of course, by SDR Console, but it can also be recorded by or replayed by other SDR programs if you record it in the right kind of format, and you may need to play around with it if you want to record in one program and play back in another. So I will say this, as actually I see eSkip popping up here in the live band. I'm going to keep trudging along with this video though, DX dilemma here. And under data record, this band here at the top, I'm going to go ahead and hit the record button. It's going to pop this up right here. And there's going to be some options that look pretty similar to the audio recording interface. That's going to allow me to pick a place to store it on my computer, which we've already reviewed. It gives me this file size option. I talked about playing back in other SDR softwares. If you want to do that, which honestly I don't know why you would, but if you do, you can pick file size right here, and doing it in 1 to 2 gigabyte chunks, which you'll end up having a bunch of smaller files that SDR Console will chain together and recognize them as one big IQ recording. Your other programs may or may not recognize them as one part of recording, but it will generally, in this 1 to 2 gigabyte format, will allow you to play it back on another SDR program. Now, the way I like to do it is just to record it and play it back in both in SDR Console. And in that case, you can uncheck file size, and it will do them in one big file. Maybe that'll work with your other SDR software, but probably not. But it will definitely work with SDR Console, and it just looks much cleaner in your file structures to where you have one big file instead of a bunch of little files chunked together by the software. So play around with that if you want to go across SDR platforms, but again, those are my recommendations. And then here, I'm going to pick 16-bit. 32-bit, it says this thing about weak signals, but honestly, I think this is more referring to very weak digital signals, maybe in the ham band that are right at the noise floor. That kind of thing doesn't really exist in FM broadcast DX with the kind of bandwidth and signal strengths that we're talking about. So I've tried, and I've seen absolutely no benefit of recording in 32-bit, and it takes up a lot more file space. So I'd recommend doing 16-bit, which is what we're going to do today. At the bottom here, it's going to give you an estimate of how much file space it's going to take to do the recording. You'll see 115 gigabytes per hour. This will fill up an average computer drive, which are 500 to 2,000 gigabytes these days. 2,000 gigabytes being 2 terabytes. I have a 2 terabyte drive, and I can fill it up really fast with IQ recordings. A few eSkip openings, and my drive is full, and I have to move it to another hard drive. So keep that in mind. This will help you manage the hard drive space that IQ recordings take up, which is a major thing to consider with IQ files and how often you may want to record. All right, then I did want to touch on, there is the ability to schedule this recording. So another file space management topic, if you want to say, hit start now and stop it after 2 hours, this will tell you right here, total 230 gigabytes. So that'll be a 230 gigabyte file, and it would automatically stop itself after 2 hours. You could also pick a start and stop point, almost as if you're like DVRing or using a VCR back in the day, where you want to set customized stop and start points. I don't really see that as being a common thing, but it is a feature. So I do use this sometimes, usually with the context of starting now and ending it after a couple of hours or whatever. So I'm going to hit start and get this recording. And then as we were talking about schedules, I did want to talk about real quick, there's this section here called Data Scheduler. This will allow you to set up a more intricate schedule, like really like a DVR or VCR type of recording schedule. I've used it in this example to record 20 minutes at the top of every hour during a Tropo opening a while back. There's, a lot you can do with this, and I will put a link in the YouTube video of another DXer that really covered that topic very well, Lloyd Van Horn, who hopefully you're all familiar with. Again, he goes into this in more depth, and I think he did a better job than I would. So I will link that here if you are interested in the scheduler. So we've now recorded. At the bottom here, you'll see almost a minute of DX, and I actually am recording DX because we have an eSkip opening going on as I record this video to Florida, which is about 1,000 miles from here. Very common eSkip area for this part of the world. All right, so we're going to stop this after a minute, and we're going to go play our file back by going to the record and playback section of the ribbon where everything is. Let's stop the active receiver up here at the top left in the quick access toolbar. Go to episode 2 if you want to learn more about the quick access toolbar. And I'm going to hit open, and you'll see basically the same window where I did the recording, except the one that I did, which began later in the 19 hour, is not here. I hit reload, and then it pops up at the bottom. So if at first you don't see your file, remember to hit the reload button. All right, so I'm going to click this and hit play, and you'll see the very similar, but some of those DX signals went away because they popped up during the signal or during the recording. And here we are in the recording, and we're like 15 seconds in. But since this is a small file, I'm going to actually pick a different one to review some more features on how to play back and explore your IQ files. So I'm going to pick this one from earlier today when we had actually another good burst of eSkip. And you'll see the first problem presents itself as I load this. It's not tuned to the correct center frequency. The SDR was tuned to 96 as the center frequency, and this file was centered on 91.5. Handy button right here at the top. Hit center. Boom. Center to the correct frequency. That's a really helpful button just to save a moment at the beginning of every recording. You can center it to the range that your IQ file was focused on as it recorded. So the first way to navigate around an IQ file, and the way that it's been done for a long time using various SDR softwares, is just to simply seek around. Think of a rewind and fast forward button on your DVR. You can set this seek interval to, say, 5 seconds or 30 seconds or 60 seconds here in the middle, and then use the skip back arrow or the skip forward arrow to navigate around the file. So I'm doing 60 seconds right now, so you'll notice quite a bit of variation in these signals as I tune around. And then as you get familiar with the file, you'll probably get to learn that, hey, around 1616, which is the timestamp here at the bottom, I was getting the signal from Fort Valley, Georgia. There's probably some other DX from that area going on here in this file that I could scroll around and try to find. Of course, as I do that, it's not popping up. Here's one, Jacksonville, Georgia, another signal about 1,000 miles away. And I would just get familiar with the landscape, if you will, of the file, and then just seek around to those locations. Or maybe I would want to navigate, if I'm writing it down or keeping it in my brain, that there's these certain hotspots in the file. I might want to navigate directly to those hotspots, and I could hit Navigator right here to pop up a little handy window that would help me skip to certain points in the file and sort of manage my playback of the DX. So you can click on some similar buttons, stop and start, and skip forward and skip back, which is the same intervals that we set up here in the seek section. And we can click this, and we could say start at a certain time and end at a certain time. But mostly it's these little buttons here that are cool in the playback section. So typically I would anchor this to the bottom of the screen, pull this down, and back in the old days of SDR Console, this is how I did all my IQ review. I would simply click around to these little time windows, which this is an hour. Every row represents an hour, and then every column or every box represents a 1 minute or perhaps 2 or 4 minute, depending on the physical size of your window. In this case, it's every minute. So if I click on 6 right here, that would navigate to 1606. If I hit 18, it would navigate to 1618. And if I remembered those hotspots, if I knew that, hey, 22 seconds is 22 minutes into the 16th hour is a hotspot, I could keep coming back to 22 and just constantly reviewing all the different signals in the file. I can also click the options, which are these three horizontal lines. I could switch this to a vertical format and perhaps pin it to the right side of my screen using this little snapping interface that we went over in episode 2. And if I wanted to view it in this way, I could do the same thing here. You'll see that it auto changed it to 2-minute intervals. So you need to keep that in mind. All right, but the helpful and more modern, I think, approach using SDR Console and a couple of other equivalent programs have, in my opinion, a more rudimentary version of the waterfall, but it's the waterfall. So the waterfall, if I click out of this right here and play, it's going to display basically the entire file in a time-lapse type of fashion, if you want to think about it that way. Instead of this scrolling by in real time, 1 second at a time, this allows me to scroll through a snapshot of the entire file. It's a little lower resolution, but it gets the basics across of what was going on with the band during the entire duration of the file. You can see this up here toward the end of the file. This is my local band. This is what it always looks like. And if I scroll down toward when the E-skip opening was in full swing, you can see stronger signals fading in and out that are representative of some good E-skip that I could work to identify. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this to the bottom part of the window here. And let's scroll down to one of those hot spots. And here we'll see 91.3. If I hover over my mouse, it'll tell me what frequency it is. You can see this is not a local. My local signal on this frequency is fairly weak, and this is a really strong DX signal that faded up over my local. So I'm going to click at this point in the time screen waterfall navigator right here, and you'll see up in the top I was tuned to 92.1, and even though I'm clicking on 91.3, it does not change the frequency. So a limitation of waterfall is that you do need to navigate to the frequency that you're hovering over. And then if I kind of pull this up, you'll see this is some DX, Fort Valley, Georgia. I think we saw that station earlier. And it does kind of, as you resize windows, it moves you around. So I could click on any point now, and now that I'm tuned to this frequency, I can tune to different fade ups, say on 91.3. So you can go one frequency at a time and look for fade ups. So here we have a different station, Columbia, South Carolina. If I click back here, it's probably back to Georgia, and so on and so forth. I could look for fade ups, let's say. And even depending on how much detail you could see, you could even see maybe if something fades up over your local signals. Sometimes the waterfall will give you enough granularity to be able to see that. I have a regional signal here on 93.7. If I move over here, I can see some fade ups on 93.7, and here's some DX, Georgia, right? So this is a good way to visualize, quick and dirty, your band. So I wanted to go over a couple of options here to where you may want to customize this. So the default, which is where I had everything set to, has the waterfall set to main display, and this is relating to zooming in and out. So if you zoom in to a specific frequency or set of frequencies, the waterfall review will follow. So if you zoom into a 1 megahertz swath, it will zoom in with you. If you hit full, it will always stay zoomed out. Direction is pretty self-explanatory. To scroll down, if time progresses as you're scrolling down, you click the first one, and then if time progresses as you scroll up, you click the second one. I like up, it's the default. You can adjust the contrast to your preference to be able to see those signals fade up, as we talked about in episode 2 and in the context of the live waterfall. And then interval. This is a really important way to use this tool, or something to keep in mind. So if you switch it to the smallest possible interval, it's going to take a long time to scroll through the file, but you're going to see more details in the file because it's going to be presenting a view that represents very granular time periods. So you could see a signal hypothetically fading up for 1 second in fairly great detail using a 0.1 second interval. It would be 10 little pixels on your screen in that case. If you pick 5 seconds, you might miss that brief fade up. So if you're looking for, say, meteor scatter or brief E-skip fade ups, you might want to use half a second or below. If you're doing really stable signals where you just want like a quick view of the band that you can click around on, like tropo, or maybe you're doing a local band scan, you could maybe do 5 or 10 seconds. I think for FMDX, anything over probably 20 seconds is not really useful. So let's do 5 for an example and let it reload. It does take a second to load. And this gives us like a macro view. You see how quick I can scroll through this? And this gives us a macro view of the opening. So you could see it started off pretty strong in this file. There was a fade down where everything kind of fell apart here around this 1625 mark. Another brief fade up. It fades down again and then comes back for a few minutes here between 1635 and 1642. And then it fades out for good. That is a pretty quick and easy way to see the macro scope of an opening. And then we could reload it and then maybe go back to 0.5, which is kind of one of my favorites. You'll see it takes just a second or two longer to load with the smaller intervals. And this would give me more granularity to see more details of what was going on in shorter time frames during that window of the IQ file. Then I could click around, tune to where I'm looking for, and find signals. So this has been the quick and dirty overview of SDR Console's audio and IQ review and recording features. I hope you enjoyed it, and in the next episode, you'll want to be tuned in because I'm going to go over the data analyzer feature, which is my favorite IQ review tool in SDR Console. I use it extensively. I don't even really use this waterfall that much myself. I always use the data analyzer, which is a souped up version of the waterfall that tunes with you as you click around and gives you really, really granular details that I think is a wonderful tool to just squeeze every little bit out of your IQ files or even give you a relatively quick overview. So stay tuned for that in the next episode. Thank you for watching today, and we will be back with you soon for another episode of FMDX for SDR Console. I'm Bryce Foster. Thank you.